When I was 20, I went out with my sister and my cousin, who both turned 18 in the summer. The drinking age in the UK is 18, so I was pretty excited that my two youngest friends at the time could finally go to a bar and drink with me while I was on leave from university. We went to a bowling alley that's famous for late night bowling and their cocktails, and for once it was empty. We were pretty drunk after a few hours, but nothing out of control. More being silly around each other, singing along to the music in the venue and attempting ridiculous bowling maneuvers. I'm quite protective of my younger siblings, and while they were getting drunker than I was, I didn't want to let too loose around them and made sure they were able to handle their drink with each round. The place was pretty empty as it was Monday night, with the exception of 2 to 3 other bowling parties. The bartender even got us free food to help pace up their alcohol intake to ensure they weren't overly drunk, and I eased up. We even had a friendly competition with the other lanes and laughed every time any one of us messed up or cheered when there was a strike. Just after the midnight mark, I noticed a guy in his early 20s come up to our table. At this point, my siblings were at the drinks table near our bowling lane and I was bowling. I took a pretty shit attempt to bowl so I could finish up my turn, as I usually don't like unwanted attention, and a few seconds later, I realized I hadn't seen this guy all night. It was strange because the few other parties were interacting with us in a group of friends, so I knew this guy hadn't been with any of the other parties. I walked back to the table while my siblings didn't seem to notice this guy, and he stood against the back wall, a few feet away from us, watching us intently. Immediately, my gut told me something was wrong, because we had been at the bowling lane at the end of the venue and the tables around the area had only been occupied by us for the night. At first, I thought this guy was trying to steal our phones or purses, which we had left on the drinks table, so I told my siblings in Hindi, as we're Indian, to watch out for this guy to make sure we had our phones on our hands at all times. However, this dude would not move, so we just kept talking in Hindi, laughing as we didn't want to let him know we thought anything of his presence, but also trying to stay alert. Suddenly, I see him checking out my cousin. I mean, if you can call staring at her from head to toe, licking his lips creepily as checking her out, and then he takes his phone out and suddenly takes a photo of us. Now, I couldn't be certain if he took a photo or not, so I told my cousin to pretend to go to the toilet towards the front at the reception, but actually alert someone behind the bar, or security, that we felt uncomfortable by this man. As my cousin leaves, this guy approaches my sister and I, asking what our plans are for the rest of the night and about ourselves, like our age, if we're from the city, etc. I literally rolled my eyes because I assumed he was just a guy trying to flirt with us, despite his creepiness, and score one of us, so I took charge of answering and was just blunt with my answers. From the corner of my eye, I see my cousin return with the security guard and just feel relieved. The bouncer then asks the guy to come with him and takes him away from us. At this point, I think it's all over and the guy will be removed from the venue, which is quite common in clubs and bars in the UK, but about 30 seconds later, the bouncer returns with the guy. The bouncer then asks me, "Do you know this man?" And the guy straight after says,
Of course she does. I'm her boyfriend.
At this point, I was in an internal panic mode and told the bouncer straight up, no, he isn't my boyfriend, and he's making us feel uncomfortable. My sisters even chimed in and telling the bouncer that we hadn't seen this guy until literally a few moments ago. This is when the guy says,
Babe, don't be like that. It was just a silly argument.
And then tries to hold my hand. I was flat out creeped out at this point, and the bouncer could tell he was lying by our reaction, so he escorted the guy outside, asking him to leave. After this, we didn't stay too long and made sure we sobered up completely before we left the venue, deciding that we would just see what other bars were open in the area, or if not, just get a taxi home. As we walked out and turned the corner from the bowling alley, we saw the guy stood talking to a few other men, showing them something on his phone. We were still a far distance away, so we couldn't hear the conversation, but when they noticed us, the guy from inside pointed at us and smiled. At this point, we knew to run back towards the bowling alley, where we stayed until closed and let the bouncer know of our situation. So, creepy guy with hidden intentions who wishes he was my boyfriend, let's not meet again.